Well, welcome everyone. It's good to be with you. My name's John McFarland, and I'm the principal at Westlake Academy here in Kincardine. And happy to have this opportunity to continue the conversation that we've begun quite a while ago now. But this time, including our lead teacher, Gayle McTiernan, who's here with me tonight. Now, Gayle and I have had several conversations over the past year. A pretty in-depth one last summer when the Bruce County weather was much more enviable and enjoyable to be in. But
True.
we're glad to be together tonight. So, Gayle, I'll just let you introduce yourself for starters.
Sure. So I have just retired after teaching for 35 years. 13 of those years in Oakville for the Halton District School Board, and the last 22 in Harriston for the Wellington County or Upper Grand District School Board. So most of my teaching has been between the grades 4 to 6, but I have had some experience as a teacher librarian, also as a special ed teacher for many years. So I did work with developmentally handicapped children in the school system, and that was a really big passion of mine. And I'm really excited about the idea or the concept of a Christian school in Kincardine. I actually went to a Christian school from grades 4 till 8, and was a really, really good experience for me. I was a little gal who started school maybe a year too early, like a January baby kind of thing, and really was not doing so well. And so my parents decided to put me into Trinity Christian School in Burlington, and I just thrived under this really wonderful teacher there, smaller class size, just the love, the care. So I definitely have a passion for Christian education from that experience. And then also we did homeschool our children as well. So I have 4 children who are range from the age of 27 to 18 or 19. Sorry, correction. So yeah, that's how I got to know John and Arlene, and we took our kids to various homeschool groups in Wingham and in Goderich, and had some good experiences through that. So Christian education is very much a really important thing to me, and I really see the value of it.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
So it's been about 6 months already since you've finished teaching up in the public system.
Yeah.
You're not worried about losing your magical teaching touch, or is it like
hope not.
riding a bike and it always stays with you? You've been keeping busy though?
Yeah. So no, I don't think that it's one of those things that you kind of lose with experience or with time. So yeah, I have been also spending some time doing a part-time course at Heritage Seminary. So that's been a real interest of mine, to kind of explore that idea of bringing Christ and His hope to people, be that children or be that friends or other adults, and kind of helping people through difficult circumstances. So I think that goes back to the sort of special ed end of things and kind of that desire to help hurting people. So that's kind of kept my brain engaged, I guess. And other than that, just kind of enjoying a season of rest and letting God kind of speak to me. And it's been difficult in a certain sense because I'm maybe a little bit type A and I like to always have something on the go and be accomplishing things. But I think it's a necessary time to just sort of prepare for the next thing that is coming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I know you are teaching Sunday school again with
yes.
this, so that's keeping you sharp as well. But
I
I did want you to address that you're taking a course because I think that's a good role model for our families and for our future learners, that we value that lifelong education, and so we want to value that in others.
Right.
You mentioned you went to a Christian school yourself as a teacher. What do you predict or foresee as the biggest differences from your public teaching career? Maybe what you're looking forward to the most, or maybe what you have some fear about.
I would say that what I'm looking forward to is kind of bringing a Christ-like lens to the teaching. So, like we've talked about before, not every lesson necessarily is going to have, a scripture and a Bible story behind it. If you're teaching the area of a triangle or something, there's really no way to actually make that application. But certainly in terms of any literature or even in daily life, kids are going to have conflicts, even though it's a Christian school. Having been to one, having had Christian children and being in homeschool environments, we know,
Sure.
we have conflicts with children, and bringing Christ into that and looking at how we can help kids through that with a godly perspective. I want to say that even when I was teaching in the public system, every single day, I always prayed that I would be able to hear what God wanted me to say and see needs and respond to them with his heart. And I totally believe that even though I couldn't, bring Christ in, by giving like biblical examples, I definitely felt his presence in very challenging circumstances because, as you know, in classrooms, you have students coming from all sorts of different situations and are bringing real hurts and pains and things like that, and knowing how to respond in a godly way. I would say that I will definitely continue, but having the freedom to actually do that, having the freedom to actually, sing a worship song or that kind of thing just is really, really exciting. Yeah.
Freedom seems to be the term that we both refer to a lot at our other
Yeah.
presentations. That seemed to be the word that kept coming to my mind and heart as well.
Right, yeah.
Just being able to capitalize on those teachable moments through where we can use our faith and have faith talks.
Yes, yes.
Is exciting to me as well. Curriculum, it's a big word and maybe a big idea. What do you think of when you think of curriculum?
I probably think of the fact that I started 35 years ago, and I think of the Ontario curriculum, that we are supposed to follow, and how many changes I've seen over the years. I started in the days of whole language and centers and all of that kind of thing, where kids were just sort of supposed to absorb books and somehow magically learn how to read. And now we're, it's changed to a much more structured literacy sort of approach, which I definitely am more in favor of. I think it's much more helpful for students in terms of learning. Certainly as a believer, there's going to be parts of the curriculum that, especially in terms of health, that were a little bit more of a challenge to teach from a Christian perspective. And certainly I didn't not teach things that I was supposed to, but, I maybe approached it in a different sort of way, I guess, right? The other thing about curriculum is, even though you have kind of a set parameters kind of thing, every teacher kind of approaches that a little bit differently, right? So if you're talking about how to teach, properties of light and sound in grade 4, one teacher might be, giving the kids a textbook and being, read these pages and answer these questions, whereas, other teachers might do a more technical sort of thing where they're, kids are researching websites. My own perspective, certainly there would be some reading aspect to what I'm teaching and answering questions, but I'd go in with a lot more hands-on. Right. Definitely that would be more my style of teaching. So we would actually get out materials and do experiments with flashlights and prisms and various different things. And kids really, feedback that you hear years later is usually, oh yeah, like I really liked when we did this experiment. And sometimes you're like, oh, okay, that didn't seem like such a big deal, right?
They remember.
But that's the sort of thing that kids actually do remember and respond to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll return a little bit more to the formal curriculum in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I thought we'd address what that I call the informal curriculum, because I think it gets across a lot of the ideas, the goals, and the mission that we have at Westlake. So I even have a few definitions here because most people don't hear of the terms hidden curriculum or informal curriculum.
Yeah.
So one definition of hidden curriculum is a set of lessons and values that students learn through their school experiences but are not explicitly taught. It can include unspoken expectations, norms, and behaviors that students learn through social interactions and the culture of the school. So when you hear hidden, some people might think, oh, it's deceptive or secretive,
yes.
but hidden is probably not the best word. I prefer informal. Informal curriculum is a term for subjects that are taught outside the official curriculum or that are taught in a customized way to meet student interests. Informal education can also refer to learning that takes place outside of a traditional school setting, such as when a family member or a coworker shares a story that you later apply to your own life, or when we take our kids on field trips, or when we bring special guests in.
Right.
So that's really, to me, the informal curriculum is as important to Westlake's future as the formal curriculum that people will see in subjects that things that we formally teach and assess and report on to parents. So when I think of our presentations and on our website, how we've listed, well, our mission statement is raising a generation of critical thinkers who are grounded in the timeless wisdom of God's word. Well, there might not be a place on the report card for that, but it's definitely just as important as our reading skills that we ground kids in that. And our ABCs of advancing minds and building character and cultivating leaders. Yeah. It's very intentional. We haven't hidden it in any way. It's just as important as the reading, writing, and math, but it's more on the informal side when we think about it. So I just wanted to mention that because we've talked about it a lot at our presentations, and people I think are starting to get used to hearing it. We're just telling them that's curriculum. Everything we do in the school is curriculum,
Right.
because it's really showing our values. So
Yeah.
I hope people can understand that importance to us, those ABCs. And that's why we started with those ABCs before we started talking about what we're teaching in specific subjects.
Yeah. And that character development is such an important piece for kids. I think a lot of what I did in my classroom was surrounding teaching kids how to be leaders. Even, these were, grade 4 or 5 kids for the most part. But, that leadership piece could look like just doing your classroom job that week, right? Which might be emptying out the recycling bins or plugging in Chromebooks or leading a squad in gym. So doing your exercises while setting up. And I think that really it does something for kids. Like it really gives them that empowerment that they can kind of have a difference and an influence. Even those shyer little gals and guys, they often will kind of get a real boost out of that leadership kind of piece.
Right. You want them to be as excited about that and as proud about that as, maybe getting 10 out of 10 on a math quiz.
Yeah.
Doing a good job in those areas of school life.
Yeah.
Now, turning more to the formal curriculum, which basically you were talking about before I took a little turn there. I found myself in preparing for this thinking of philosophy of education. So I'll maybe start philosophical and then we'll narrow down again. But I couldn't help but finding myself feel confident because I sometimes feel sorry for the not feel sorry, but I think it would be difficult choosing a curriculum if you didn't know what your foundation was.
Right.
And a lot of institutions or entities will claim that they're neutral. But everyone has a belief system.
Yes.
And so if I was thinking I was neutral and trying to choose a curriculum, I think I'd be all over the place and it wouldn't have continuity or consistency. So what I feel confident with us is we definitely know what we believe. So just to get into the philosophy a little bit, you've got all your ologies. So your epistemology, the theory of knowledge. Well, we believe that all truth is God's truth.
Yes.
And all accurate knowledge and skills that you can afford, the ability to perform skills comes from God. Anthropology, the origin and the nature and the destiny of humankind. Well, we believe that we are made in God's image, yet fallen in sin, and we need the grace of Jesus Christ. And believing these things, again, is that word freedom. Like, we know what we believe. The only difficult in picking a curriculum is there's so many good Christian curricula out there. So axiology, the study of values, while we know the absolute righteousness of Jesus Christ is the absolute standard for us all. So there is no good and there's no good and evil, right and wrong without looking at Jesus. So again, I feel our job is a little bit easier when we go to choose a formal curriculum for our subjects.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And I know that we've both been through that in choosing a homeschool curriculum, because that was a big part of homeschooling, that you went to the provider of curriculum and there were numerous ones to choose from, and you kind of chose the one that best would dovetail with your family and kind of how it would work for you. Like with us, when we had, such a disparity of ages, ours was very much kind of like they worked from one unit to the next unit. And maybe in retrospect, it wasn't the most exciting curriculum. I'm sure my children would say that. But it did definitely cover the basics, and we always supplemented with other activities and that kind of thing too. But yeah, I know that was always a big thing.
Well, they must have been engaged because they're all very successful in
their fields.
Different areas
and
of life
yours
now.
As well. And yours as well. Yeah.
So just thinking ahead to being practical at Westlake, the only danger I do see is because now with so many digital curricula out there, and many are good, they're not the antithesis of what we're teaching through Scripture. So, and they don't just offer samples for free. Like, there's full units that are free.
Okay.
So it is so tempting to take something from here and there. And I just think the only danger we need to be aware of is make sure we're not doing something from one unit one day and something else from another unit, another, just being too eclectic, I suppose. I'm thinking.
Yeah. You would want to have some continuity, that I would say, especially in things like language arts and math, that you're ensuring that everything is covered. And especially in math, coming back to concepts kind of periodically. So probably one failure in the school system might be that, we cover, let's say, multiplication in September. And then, you apply it all the way through, but, you often realize maybe in December that, we've kind of forgotten how to multiply 3 by 2-digit numbers, and you have to come back to that. But curriculum that kind of constantly brings back those sort of skills, I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah, constant review. I'm finding kids are as lovable as ever, but the memories definitely seem to be shorter, and the attention spans seem to be shorter. So I'm finding myself on a daily basis reviewing several things over and over again. And it's helping to some degree, but
it's always interesting when you teach a split class and you have the kids the second year and they are swearing to you that they never did this before, right? And you're like, we spent weeks on this concept, but it's just the way it is. They need that constant review, bringing things back. So, yes.
Never saw it, never heard of it. First time.
I must have been away that month. I don't know.
That month.
Yeah.
Pedagogy. So, fancy word, again, simple term though, basically how teachers could teach in theory or how they do teach in practice. And again, it would be informed by our values.
Yeah.
So everyone has different styles, but when it goes a little deeper because it is informed by our values. So what you've referred to it just a few minutes ago, actually, kind of your preferences. But is there anything you think is distinct and unique in your teaching or stands out?
I don't know if it's completely distinct because I think there's absolutely marvelous teachers out there. But if you walked into my classroom, what you would see is a very organized space. With kids who generally are usually on task. I think people have usually described my classrooms as calm. Like they walk in and generally there's sort of a feeling of calm and kind of focused learning, especially during those independent work times. So that's kind of a thing. Definitely clear expectations of behavior, and respect, like encouraging respect for one another. And also, respect for me as a teacher. Another thing that I think I did mention a little bit was that whole leadership piece. I would, every September, October, spend quite a bit of time just talking about character. Now, obviously, this was the public system, and we weren't talking about Christian values, but also things that could apply to being Christian values, I suppose. So it was very much around the idea of kids setting goals, kids being proactive, having responsibility, caring for one another, cooperating with one another. And then all of those sort of values were kind of evidenced from day to day. So for example, if I was teaching a math lesson and then students had to go and, do their applied activity, when students were finished that early, they often would have a chance to go and do an enrichment activity. In my classroom, it's often chess because I really love chess and teaching kids chess. But before they would go and do that, I would always encourage them to see if somebody else needed help. So in the classroom, one teacher can only get to one student at one time. So just to go and ask another student if they could help them to kind of move past a certain barrier, not giving the answers. That was always very clear. Like, just don't go and give your friend the answers so you can play with them. But just that sort of feeling of we're a team, almost like a family, which I like the schoolhouse model for that because, kids can feel like they can help one another. Right. And it doesn't always have to be the older kids with the younger kids. Sometimes it can be the younger kids who can help in a different way with the older kids. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's kind of what you would see in my classroom. And what about yours?
Nice picture. That's a good picture. Yeah. I believe the calming part, I feel calm just talking to you. So not organized space so much, but I like to think my lessons are very clear and organized.
Right, yeah.
The space, not so much. But
it's all up here.
Right. It's clear to me. And engaging.
Yeah.
I like to think that my lessons are engaging. As I mentioned earlier with memories and attention span, I feel that is becoming more challenging. But yeah, clear expectations are very important. So everyone knows what to expect. There's no surprises. Yeah, a lot of the similar things that you've mentioned. Yeah. I do find trying to be multimodal, like trying to suit our learning needs.
Yes, so using technology and more like physical things with certain students and different learning styles, essentially.
Yeah.
Making sure you accommodate to that.
Definitely trying to get the kinesthetic piece in because I know it's tough to sit in the desk for too long of a period of time. So we'll still do those gallery walks.
Okay, yeah.
Where they visit certain stations to do some of their learning.
Yeah.
Just get them up and moving again, just to take advantage of those multiple intelligences.
Yeah. Something that we did, again, younger kids, were body breaks. So especially when we had a double period of language or something like that, halfway through, we'd put on a video and dance like crazy people for 5 minutes, and then let's focus again, kind of thing. So just getting bodies moving and re-engaged. Yeah.
Right. Are there any special lessons that you kind of referred to that before? I would say the ones that stand out to me. So we're getting really specific here now, but even making slime last year was a highlight. Yeah. That was a highlight more to the kids than to me. But
a little bit messy.
Yes, I like. But I do like the hands-on. But then it's almost the opposite, doing novel studies where you can really focus on deeper redemptive themes.
Yes.
So that's where, now sometimes that takes away a group of the class who don't want to delve any deeper, but those have been special times. And then I always find Remembrance Day time, you can capitalize on that for a few weeks, just because the kids sense a solemn feeling. So not just the assembly itself, but leading up, I just find they take on a different level of respect during that time. So those specifically have been some of the highlights that I find.
Yeah, Remembrance Day is always a really good one because it gives them a chance to go and talk to their grandparents or great-grandparents if they're still around and tell those stories and bring those stories back to share. Because there's a lot of them who have had relatives that they would have never even met, or, or maybe the families haven't had that impetus to have that conversation, right? So yeah, no, that's always a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of great memories and relationships, and more to build on yet.
Yeah.
Any trends in education right now that you're ready to champion or take on, or you'll find challenging?
Yeah. So one that I really have embraced would be around technology, robotics, coding, and all of that sort of thing. So I did spend a couple of years, a few years ago, as teacher librarian at the point where they were really emphasizing maker spaces. So we purchased, or the board purchased, various different robotic kind of things like Lego robotics and things called Makey-Makeys and Dot and Dash. Some of these things, people who are watching will be like, oh yeah, we had that. Right. So the robotics kind of element was really interesting because kids, even quite young kids, like even grade 2 and 3, could do some really fairly basic coding, but to get the robots to do what they wanted them to do, that kind of thing, was always kind of engaging. Coding as well is challenging for some kids. So coding, we would take them through various courses. Code.org is kind of a standard one where even, again, young kids can learn to, it's basically problem solving, taking blocks and moving things around and then getting on the screen projected what you want to have happen, kind of thing. But really getting into some pretty sophisticated sort of things, even with grade 5s. So I think they amazed themselves sometimes that, I coded this and put in these loops and look at this video game that's kind of appeared. So yeah, embracing that. Probably we won't really need to face, I don't think, with really little children to start. So K to 3, maybe not so much, but the whole AI chat GPT thing, I think can be good. I think there's a lot of critical thinking to be done around that where, you need to teach students, grade 7, 8, high school, that, you can't just use your chat GPT to write your assignment for you. Like, there's lots of good conversations to be had later on around that. And I'm sure you've probably experienced that a little bit more than I have.
To some degree, yes.
But certainly, in terms of that, yeah.
Well, I think you're getting maybe to a little bit of what we can do that's unique to other school systems. So maybe we can finish up with that. I know both of us with special ed backgrounds are big on life skills.
Yeah.
And with smaller numbers, what do you see as some of the things we can do that other systems cannot?
So definitely things like cooking. We've got the kitchen right there, and teaching kids measuring and following recipes. All of those things are really, really good. I love the idea of like even building things with wood, like, the Home Depot craft kits, like making birdhouses, that kind of thing. For certain kids, they would absolutely love that kind of thing. The arts, music, I absolutely love to paint and create in that kind of way, but I also have taught music up until grade 6. So things like recorders, that kind of thing. So those wouldn't be necessarily unique to here, but I want parents to know that, their kids would definitely be getting, something that is actually better than public system.
Yeah, and even in quantity too. I think quality and quantity. So we just built toolboxes on a special field trip, but that would be the only time for the year.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience, and it was like, oh, the kids are thriving in this environment.
Yes.
But that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we
Like
can do
with 30
more
kids
of.
in a class, you just can't really realistically do that very easily. But with the smaller group, it just enables you to be able to do those more specialty kind of things. And then I know that you also want to continue to run teams. You're an avid coach, and moving forward would be pretty passionate about continuing
Most
in
definitely.
the kind of Christian school circuit to
Right. You can,
do
even
that
with
sort of thing.
primary, you can at least start with cross-country connections and some track and field connections. So.
yes. So that would be a very engaging thing for many students, I think.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning, Gayle was back to Sunday school teaching, but I have to mention before we go why I had Gayle as number one on the priority list for offering lead teacher role. Vacation Bible School, a few different years. I had the easy job. I was just socializing with a group of kids and bringing them from place to place. But Gayle was set up in the wind at an art and crafts station, but still was so calm with a short amount of time to complete a project, and even in the midst of successfully completing it with all the kids, you would still definitely refer to the Bible story of the day and still get biblical principles and teaching in there in that calm manner of yours. So glad you're part of the Westlake team.
I'm looking forward to it.
And if any folks listening want to know more about Westlake Academy, just visit us at westlakeacademy.ca. And thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Take care.